Hi, Dominique. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. So, Dominique's in New York City. I'm on the other coast. I'm in Los Angeles. And we're splitting the. So, I was in New York, by the way, about a month ago. And the weather in New York was 75, 77. It was perfect. And in LA, it was like 100. It was like the
Yeah,
one time you guys had better weather than us.
definitely. I was actually in LA the beginning, I want to say June. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Well, we're going to get into all of your educating and all of everything that you do, but I'm going to introduce you first to the listeners who don't know you yet. You're a New York City hairdresser, focuses on texture. You have your own studio called Uzuri. Did I say it
hmm
right?
Yes.
You're the co-founder of the Curl Crew, which is your texture education team. And
Yes.
you're a member of the Texture versus Race group, which we know very well because we've had a lot of
Oh, awesome.
your coworkers on there. And you're a K18 ambassador.
I am.
Did I miss anything?
I'm also an ambassador for Oligo Color.
Ah, very
Yeah.
good. Very good. Okay, so before I start with your story, do you focus on cutting or color?
So I say this all the time. I'm a cutter that loves color.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
So
you
for
do
me,
both.
I do both, but for me, when I do color, the color is to basically enhance the haircut.
Hmm.
And if you ask a
Yeah.
colorist, it's usually the other way around.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. I love it. All right. Well, let's start with where you're from originally and how you got into this business.
So I am originally from DC. I was born in DC, then relocated to Long Island, New York when I was about 9 or 10. Um, I, wanted to do hair from a young age. Parents, family tells you, go to college first. So
Right.
did that. Literally 2 years. I was like, this is definitely not what I want to do. Finished like my second semester, and
Hold
then
on. I'm curious. I'm curious.
Mhm.
When you were there for the 2 years, what were you studying?
What wasn't I studying? So I started off early childhood education.
Ah,
Then I realized I didn't have patience for children. Um,
yeah,
then I just went to
I get
straight
that.
education.
Hmm.
Um, then from there, oh my gosh, I think psychology.
Okay.
And then I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, I don't think I want to do any of this.
Well, that's
um,
good. And you only
yeah,
spent 2 years there, so you didn't waste too much time.
right. So right when I finished that, then I went to beauty school on Long Island. Long Island Beauty School lives. Um, did that, and I think I did full time because I wanted to just finish it, knock it out the park. I always knew I wanted to teach, wanted to be in education. Um, so for me, right in beauty school, I'm asking, okay, how do I become a teacher? You know, so in New York, you have to work 2 years consecutively in a field after you finish beauty school to be considered to go back to apply for a teacher. So that's what I did. I was a few months short of 2 years, and they didn't catch on.
Ah, there you
Right.
go.
So when they caught on, I was already teaching. So when the state would come, like I would duck in the back or something like that. So I did that, and
So
then
hold on. So hold on. So so New York State requires a license to educate because most states don't.
so yes. So usually, what happens if you're going to teach at a typical beauty school, you do have to have a teacher's permit to actually teach. The school usually applies for your temporary, and then you actually have classes that you have to do to get your permanent instructor's license.
Got it. Got it. All right. So you went through that process. Sounds like you graduated from beauty school, and then did you go into a salon and work behind the chair?
Yeah, yeah,
For
yeah. So I
okay.
graduated beauty school, worked in a typical mom and pop. It was a traditional black salon behind the chair, and I did that for a while. Um, and I don't know. It just didn't fit. I wasn't. I mean, I was good at it. I fit in where I worked, but for me, I didn't see myself doing that like for a long time at all.
Yeah.
I've never been the type of stylist that wanted to have millions and millions of clientele and be behind the chair 24/7. That's never been my motive.
Yeah.
So from there, I was really interested in cutting. And at the time, I don't think I could afford, the cutting classes and all the education. So I was researching, where can I go to get free education? So at the time, it was Regis and Supercuts. So you sign on to Regis and Supercuts. They send you through a week's long worth of cutting training, and you get paid for it. So I did that really just to get the knowledge and the cutting really quickly. Um, and from there, I wound up staying like 10 years.
Oh my God.
Right.
So, whoa, I didn't see that coming. Okay. So I was following along great. And then you dropped the 10 years. Okay. So 1 week, and I've heard this before with some of the chains. And so I'm always fascinated with that 1 week kind of, what do you call it? Just a boot camp.
It was
Almost like
definitely
1 week.
a boot camp.
Yeah. So talk about that. I mean, isn't it, if I remember correctly, the last time I talked to somebody about this, they teach you like 3 cuts or something like that?
So when I did it, it was a long, long time ago. So this was 25, 26 years, something like that.
Oh my God. You look like you're 30 years old.
I
Oh my
wish.
God. I'm sitting here thinking, okay, we're talking about like 10 years ago.
No, I've been doing this almost 30 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So back then, what happened, they taught us the haircuts on mannequins. And I want to say it was a good 7 haircuts,
Okay.
So, traditional cutting, long layers, short layers, bobs, graduation. And they also showed barber work. So they taught you how to do clippers, fades, and all of that stuff. So um, to do good with it and to really catch on, I think you already had to have an understanding of cutting. Just someone who really doesn't have the understanding of cutting going in, because it is a boot camp, it's really fast paced and you have to pick up really quickly. And then you're tested on it.
Right.
So you're learning it, and then now you have to demonstrate it, after, I mean, it's 5 days, but you really don't practice, unless, the mannequin. And then the 5th day was your test. They had like a partnership with, I think, a group home or something like that. So they actually brought in live models for us to do.
Oh, okay.
Um,
And how
I
much
don't know
was
if
it?
I don't know if they're still doing it that way now, but
Yeah.
that's how it was when I was there.
Yeah, I think they are. I'm trying to remember when last time I had this conversation with somebody and they mentioned that maybe 6 months ago on the podcast, but and that might have been 10 years ago or something. But yeah, of course, these are people who have graduated beauty school, so hopefully the foundation is there.
Yes.
And then they're teaching you for this 5 days, but I imagine they're also making sure that you can actually do the job before you go out on the floor.
That part. So they do give you a pass or a fail. So if an individual doesn't succeed with that first week, they do give them a chance to take the class again before they give them a definite no. Yeah.
And then a no means you don't get the job at the salon.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And you mentioned barbering and I'm sure ladies cuts, because in a Regis type salon, whoever is walking in the door, that's who you're doing.
Yeah. So you have to be prepared. I think that's why the training, it wasn't necessarily a specialized training. Yes, it was specialized for cutting, but they did basically whatever could come in the door.
And I'm curious, was there anything, I mean, how much of that 5 days was you learning new techniques and you're like, oh, I like that. That's better than what I learned in beauty school, versus this is all rudimentary stuff and I know it already?
So for me, I liked the education because it was simpler. So I think in beauty school, to really understand it, they had to really break it down and you had to follow those steps, So the education that I got from Regis and Supercuts, they followed those steps, but it was condensed and it was in a simpler, faster form. Because remember, their model is on quantity.
Oh yeah.
So the more you do an hour, the more cuts you do an hour, the more you get paid. So they were
Speed.
really trying, right, to expedite the cuts, and that's where I got my speed from.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's really good training from that
Yeah.
perspective. And so you were there for 10 years.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
So I was there for 10 years. So as a regular stylist, then I became a salon manager. Then they just started to put me into salons that weren't performing well. So then I can bring their numbers up.
You're a fixer.
Yeah. So then I did that for a while, and then they just decided to just give me my own territory. So I had like 15 salons.
Oh, amazing.
No, it was really good. It was definitely unexpected. Like I said, I was just going there, to get a free a class basically, and to get paid for it. I wasn't really expecting to be there for like 10 years.
Yeah. But you ended up getting all sorts of experiencing managing the salons.
Oh, absolutely.
Managing a territory.
Yeah, manage all of that. And honestly, it definitely prepared me for later on in my career. But yeah, and also because it was a corporate situation, they gave a lot of tools and a lot of resources for their management to make them better. So, I was getting paid to learn, the whole step of the way. Yeah.
That's pretty great. All right. Well, why did you leave ultimately?
I got tired, bored. Honestly, it was the same thing over and over.
Yeah.
So I think for a stint, I did a lot of freelance work. So I did that for a while, worked in some salons, not that long. So I did a bunch of hopping around. And then I started to do more work with fashion shows, shoots, things like that. So that's kind of where my freelance work really, really like kind of turned what it turned into.
Okay.
And with that, eventually there comes a time where, you want a little bit more stability,
Yep.
and then especially me coming from a corporate situation that was very stable to going, willy-nilly, basically.
Opposite. You did the opposite. Yeah.
It was the total opposite. And I'm like, oh, this is fun, but this is scary too, So I think with that, I just started sending out my resume to a bunch of random places. This is when Craigslist was up and running.
Yeah.
So sent my resume out to a bunch of places. And
Are you in Manhattan now at this part of the story?
I was both back and forth. So I was still living on Long Island, working in the city. So I was definitely mobile.
Okay.
Then I sent my resume out, and the first salon that answered, I went to the interview. Had no idea who it was. It didn't say. They just said it was a salon looking for education management. So I was like, all right, I can do that. I don't have to do hair. That's easy. So went in. I didn't even tell them that I did hair. Right. They found out through social media.
Okay.
So went in there, just management.
Yeah.
And that was my first curl specific salon.
Okay.
And that's basically the transition, which kind of leads me here where I'm at now today.
Okay, so this is interesting. So being at the Regis Supercut salon for those 10 years, you're doing all kinds of hair.
Yeah.
You're doing fine, straight blonde hair. You're doing curly hair. You're doing everything the whole way.
Everything.
Yeah.
It's always been like that. I mean, from, when I was in beauty school, when we were on the clinic floor, where the school was, it was really diverse. So anybody could come and sit in your chair, and you had to know what to do, and if you didn't, you had to learn it. It wasn't too much of, I specialize in this, I specialize in that, especially in the Black salon. So specialties, and I specialize in cutting, I specialize in color. I didn't really experience that until I started working more in a white salon.
Mm. Why is that?
I don't know. I don't know. You got to ask a white person that. I
I mean,
honestly,
my
I,
understanding is that it's kind of salon based. Correct me if I'm wrong, but some salons really focus on the silos. They want the
mhm,
hairdressers to just cut, or they want the colorist to just color. You know, depending on kind of how they structure things. And there's other
right.
salons that allow that flexibility and the
hmm
freedom.
Yeah, definitely. Again, I really didn't experience that until I started working with more predominantly white salons.
Hmm.
Um, and my experience was, I just, with other stylists, was, I just don't know color, so I don't do it.
Mm,
And I never wanted to be that type of stylist.
right.
So, yeah, I'm going to learn it. I might not, totally fall head over heels for it, but I need to know something. What if my client doesn't want to go to another colorist?
Yeah.
So, and that's
Yeah.
that's always been my take on it.
And I'll repeat what you said at the beginning of this episode, which was you do both cut and color, but your perspective is that the color should enhance the cut,
Right.
and a colorist's perspective might be the opposite of that, but it is similar in that
Yes.
they should both complement each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so if you have the skills to do that, then who better than to color the person who did the cut and understands the cut the most?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
but
And
not everybody
also,
has crafted their
mhm,
coloring skills if they focused on cutting.
right, correct. And I'm finding that now a lot of my clientele is really leaning more towards a one stylist, one hair cutter, one colorist, to do everything instead of having to go to multiple people.
Yeah, maybe for that
Yeah,
reason that we
yeah,
just
yeah,
said,
yeah.
if the beauty pro is able to do it. Okay,
Right.
so your career was basically you tried college, you hated it. You went to a highly structured corporate chain, the biggest of all, and you had a highly structured 10 years where you
hmm
learned a tremendous amount in a highly focused, organized way. And then you're
Yes.
like, to hell with that. I want to try the freelance thing, which you did to great effect until you were like, I need a little bit more structure.
Right.
So then you went to some salons where you could start finding a balance.
hmm
And then now you're independent with your own studio. So talk about the transition from kind of the traditional salons to your studio.
Oh, okay. So that transition for me, one was definitely scary because, I'm coming from stability. All of the major salons or the brands that I worked at from, they were basically a corporate machine.
Mm.
So there's a lot of cushion when it comes to working for that. So going on my own, it was scary. It was like a roller coaster, honestly. I enjoy it. I love it. I'm glad I did it. But, it took some adjusting um, to get out of the mindset of working for someone else or working for a company. So, working for someone else, working for a company, working for a brand, you're able to be an artist only enough to do what they want you to do.
Right. Right.
So you can't really be your full self, especially because how I talk is not how the brand wants their information, brought out there. So there was a lot of that and trying to find yourself in that. um yeah. I also forgot I did go back to college.
Oh, you did?
Yes. So
What after
after
what?
after I finished beauty school, so I
Oh
started
my
working,
gosh.
right. I
Okay.
started working at Supercuts. I was started working at Supercuts, and I was working at that first mom and pop salon. It was called La Diva
Okay.
at the same time. So I was working there and Supercuts at the same time. And I went back to school for music performance and music business.
Oh my God. Okay.
So I was
So
all over the place.
yeah, yeah. Well, that makes sense though. You obviously had a passion for music and
Yeah.
art, etc.
Yeah.
Performance. All right. So was that how long were you there for that? I'm curious about
2 years.
how that stopped. 2 years.
That was the expiration. Me in school.
That's a
2
pretty
years.
long time though.
Yeah, I mean, it was cool at the time. I was also singing, and then we started to record, and things started to kind of pick up. So I'm like, okay, if we're going to be dealing with the business side of it, someone in a group needs to know something.
Hmm.
So that's what,
Interesting.
yeah.
So you have a good voice.
Yeah, I can hold a note.
I'm so envious of people who can sing.
Now, listen,
I
that was
have
in
the
my
worst voice.
20s. That was totally in my 20s. Okay.
Yeah. So no longer.
I don't know.
Could you like crush the karaoke if you like roll into a bar?
Oh yeah, I do. I like karaoke, but it's funny because the reason why I really stopped singing was because I have horrible stage fright.
Oh, well,
Horrible.
join the
So
club.
yeah, even now, when I'm on a stage teaching, like so yeah,
Yeah. Well, that's pretty normal. All right. Well, that's super interesting. Okay.
yeah.
So, all right. So you, um, let's see. So you're in the salons in New York, and then you're contemplating going out on your own. And with a history of that much structure and consistency with your paycheck, you were concerned about going out on your own.
Yeah, I was definitely concerned. I mean, who wouldn't be?
Yeah.
Especially also at my age. I'm 3 years
What,
from 50, so
32?
I wish. So it's like, okay, Dominique, like what it was really weird, you know, knowing the work that you already know. I already knew what to do.
Yeah.
It was just doing it. And the thing is, when you're out on your own, you have no one to blame but yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So the pressure that you would probably get working for someone else or in other companies from other people, now it's coming from you.
Right.
And for me, that was even worse
Mm.
because you can't shut that off.
That's
So
very, very interesting point.
yeah, so it was like, okay, you just got to do it. Like I just had to do it, and it's right. It's been October, actually will make a year, and it's been going good. I can't have no complaints.
Okay, so when you were making this transition, you had a lot of clients, enough clients to make you feel like are you still doing editorial work and freelancing type
Yeah,
things?
yeah. So now that I'm independent, I have more freedom.
Yeah.
So I'm able to work for Fashion Week. I'm able to do an editorial shoot if they call for me.
Hmm.
And I don't have to ask somebody for permission. Can I get this day off? Like, I
Right.
don't think I will ever ask anybody to ask for a day off ever again. So
Yeah.
it was just that, like, with everything that I've done in the past, I wasn't able to mesh everything together, because I just couldn't. I didn't have the time or the freedom to.
Right.
Now I have all the freedom in the world. So I can, say I have, 4 days in the salon. The other days I'm educating or I'm traveling, I'm teaching, whatever,
Yeah.
and I just didn't have that before. And now that I've gotten a taste of that, I don't ever want to do that again.
Yeah. You don't
Yeah.
ever want to go back. It makes a lot of sense,
Mm-mm. Yeah.
especially with somebody with is the breadth of experience that you have. And now you can choose the proportion of your time that you want to spend in each thing.
Absolutely. 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 And for me, that makes it so I don't get burnt out in any of the different areas. When I was just in the salon, I would get burnt out, doing clients every day, all day.
Hmm.
So now I can juggle it and really balance, whatever that is, however that feels,
Yeah.
I have the choice to do that.
Yeah. Sounds like I mean, equilibrium is the word that comes to my mind.
Hmm.
We all look
Yeah.
for some sort of equilibrium in our lives with how much time we spend doing each of the things, that
Yeah.
we like to and we have to, and we want to get to a balance that is good for us. And of
Right.
course, that balance can change over time depending on how we feel or whatever,
Hmm.
or our opportunities and such. But it sounds like
Yeah.
you've found that balance. So give us an idea of how much time you're spending doing each of the things that you do, per week, let's say.
So the thing is, it varies with the seasons almost. So, um, like education and show seasons are usually they start up. Fall gets really busy, starting with Fashion Week, and then usually it goes to like classes, and then usually the start of the new year you have the beauty shows that I always go to. So it's like it's a circuit. So depending on how much traveling I do, I will then either scale back at the salon, at the
Mm-hmm.
studio with clients, because again, I don't want to be burnt out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it really depends. So if usually my traveling is on weekends, so long weekends. So usually I'll come back home on a Monday or Tuesday, and then I'll give myself 2 days off and then work in the salon.
Nice.
So and then also you got that for personal life too.
Yeah.
And
What does that mean? A personal
right.
what?
Exactly. So I am now learning how to incorporate my personal life and my home life in scheduling almost, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
with everything else and
Mm-hmm.
putting that more at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Of course it was totally different when I was in my 20s,
Right.
like you said, things change and they progress.
Mm-hmm. And I imagine that your clients who have stuck with you through these transitions are the ones who probably most value your skills and you as a person and your personality, and they're probably also the most flexible with you, right?
Yeah, I
They
mean,
have to be
honestly,
flexible.
yeah, honestly, my clients are great. Like they know my schedule. They'll call me. Okay, when are you traveling? Let me get in there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's great. And then if I'm off and I'm not doing anything, and they call me, like, yeah, I'll come and do your hair. You
If you
know,
feel like it.
right. So
Yeah.
I have the freedom to do that, and I also let them know that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like a pretty darn good situation that you have. Um, Tell us about what changes are you seeing uh, in New York behind the chair? Are clients still behaving the same way? Are you seeing any differences?
Let's see. So I would say my base clientele now are kind of all chill. They and honestly, I've curated that. You
Sure.
know, yeah, I've definitely had you know clients that weren't my favorite. And it seemed like a chore. Like you'll have that client you'll see on your book, and you're like, oh, this one's coming in. You
Here
know,
we go.
Right. And then like you're dreading that client all day when you've had 4 or 5 clients that were perfect, beautiful, but you totally forget about them, and you go home cussing this client out. You know. So, I rather have clients if it's work, which it is, of course. I want to enjoy it and I want to enjoy my clients. So for
Yeah.
me when my clients come in, it's a good time.
Yeah.
I'm catching up because I don't see them often. My clients don't come every 3 weeks. For a haircut, they come maybe every 4 or 5 months.
Hmm.
So we catch up, and there's interest there. And it's not just a client.
Right.
It's not just a haircut.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's definitely, I think, the ambition of every hairdresser behind the
I hope
chair
so.
is to have that kind of a group of clients and relationships that they really, really enjoy, people they enjoy being around.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk about kind of the negative side of this, which is those pain in the ass clients. You know, those anxiety causing.
Yeah.
Oh shit! You know, she's on my book,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to worry about it all day.
All day.
How do you get rid of them? Maybe that's not the right phrase, but
No, it
how do
is.
you work them? Okay, how do you get rid of them?
It is. So for me, it's a matter of everything comes back to boundaries. So as a stylist, what are your boundaries that's going to keep this relationship with you and your client positive? And as a stylist, we have to give them boundaries. We have to let them know. So a lot of, my clients that I haven't seen in a while, they come here for their first time, and I definitely let them know, like, what was is not now, you know. So this is how it runs. I give you the water, it's up to you to drink, So they know my boundaries, and they know what I'll deal with and what I'll put up with and what I'm absolutely not. And if it comes a time where the relationship just isn't working, then I'll have to have that conversation.
How does
And
that sound?
I've had those conversations.
Yeah.
Once you have that difficult conversation once, it'll be easier every time you have it.
100%.
And
And that's kind of where I was going with this. That's how it works, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, and so those difficult conversations. Remember, I started teaching when I was 24. So I've had to have those type of conversations back then when I was 24, writing up a student, that was old enough to be my grandmother. So it definitely, it takes courage. It does, but it also takes knowing your worth as well. Did you go to school to have a chair full of horrible clients that you hate coming in? No, no, I don't think anyone did that. So it for me, it's just a matter of letting everybody know, put all the cards on the table. This is what we're working with, and I leave it up to the client. If you choose to continue coming to see me, then I expect that you understand how this is going to go moving forward.
Yeah.
And the minute they do something that goes against that agreement or they cross that boundary, that's the last conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I could just tell that you've had that conversation before. You've had to, and you
How
have the
could you tell?
confidence. You have the because you have the confidence and you have the words and you have the perspective all buttoned up.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
when you,
it takes a lot of trial and error. It takes a lot of, getting cussed out from the clients, and then also too, for a long time, I was the youngest one in the room. So speaking to clients that are clearly, they were a lot older than me, there was that dynamic as well. So I had to work through, okay, I don't care if you are older than me. These are the boundaries, regardless of age, regardless of whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they're fair boundaries, and
Yeah, absolutely.
and this is the relationship that is going to be. And if you choose not to have it, then that's fine.
Yeah, right. And
Yeah.
I have no problems with clients saying, "Well, okay, I don't think this is going to work for me." Fine.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a list of other stylists you can possibly go to.
There you go. Yeah.
So listen, as stylists, there's enough hair out there for all of us to do. And if
Yeah.
you're not the right fit for me, you'll be the right fit for somebody else, or somebody else will just tolerate your behavior. Yeah.
Totally. All right. So as you've gotten to this point in your career, I imagine that you've also been able to focus, you've been able to focus on the clients that you want to be around, and you've been able to focus on the services that you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so are you pretty much 100% texture type clients now, curl clients?
No, I do everything. So I have
Oh, you
clients.
still do everything. Okay.
I have clients that come in. They want their hair blown out. They want their hair straightened. They want their hair flat ironed. Absolutely. The only thing I don't do chemical relaxers or anything like that. But yeah, I do updos. I do bridal hair. I do weddings.
And
Like
you like the variability, it sounds like.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because I mean, I'm
Perfect.
bald now, but when I was growing my hair, I changed my hair all the time,
Hmm.
like all the time. So I can't, one, have my clients just locked into just wearing their hair a one way all the time.
Hmm.
So I'm definitely a stylist that's open to change when it comes to my clients as long as their hair is healthy.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about your education. Are you educating with oligo and K18?
So I do content for both.
Okay.
I do content for both. I have my own education brand called the Azuri Method.
Okay.
And that's when I go out and I teach texture. I teach how to work with texture. I teach how to cut hair. I teach how to work with texture. So no matter what your cutting background is, you'll be able, because it's based on basic cutting theory. Okay. The only thing that changes when you're dealing, that you really have to pay close attention to with dealing with textured hair, is the behavior of the texture. So if I cut this texture like this is going to happen. Okay. So if I don't want this to happen, then I need to cut this hair like this. Okay. But if I want, so it's a lot of, really studying the canvas that you're working with and knowing the behaviors. And a lot of times I've seen, as stylists, we want to make the hair look the way we want it to go. And when you're dealing with natural texture, you have to see what the texture is doing naturally, especially if you're working with the texture.
Yeah.
So once you see and feel and really see what these textures, sometimes multiple textures, are doing together, then you'll know how to really shape that silhouette, whether if they want to wear it big or they
Hmm.
don't. They want it more controlled and defined. So it's really just a matter of knowing really your basic cutting theory, angles, high elevations, low elevations, natural elevation that the texture is already given to the hair. So
Hmm.
a lot of what we're doing when it comes to cutting and adding shape and angles, I find we're doing, as stylists, we're doing too much. We're doing too much cutting, especially with textured hair. That's why textured people with textured hair and curls, they're scared to get their hair cut because it never
Yeah.
grows. It's always too short, you
Hmm.
know? So, I think we just, as stylists, if you're doing texture, you really have to look at what is this texture telling you that it wants to do.
Hmm. And then
Okay. And
working within that.
exactly. Because that's where the mistakes come. When you're doing something that would look absolutely beautiful on a straighter canvas, but you do that same technique on curls, it's going to look totally different. Totally
Hmm.
different. So just that idea alone with just one person in a head of hair, if they have multiple textures, you're gonna have to handle those different areas in the head differently,
Hmm.
but still keep it cohesive so it looks like a fully blended haircut.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it's
Right.
like you just can't learn, okay, let me go learn this curly cut and I'm gonna do this curly cut on everybody.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that.
Doesn't work that way. And that's why Chat GPT is not going to take over your job any day soon,
That's
because
that
there's
part.
so much variation in what a hairdresser does behind the chair.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's clients that I see regularly all the time, and sometimes I have to do their hair totally different than what I did before.
Hmm.
And that's because texture changes, hydration levels change, damage, all of that. So all of that is
Environmental
going,
stresses.
yeah, all of that is going to basically direct me on how to cut this person's hair.
Right. So I've been told many, many times that the beauty school industry, the network, the curricula are horrible when it comes to teaching texture. And some states have passed laws to correct that. New York is one, California is another, and I think there's others.
Hmm.
I'm not going to, I think Minnesota, but I shouldn't even say that because I could be
Yeah,
wrong.
I think it was Minnesota.
And so, do you see the New York State beauty schools incorporating texture into their curricula?
So what I am seeing is they are
In air quotes, he's doing air quotes for the listeners.
okay. They are, but they're basically just reading this information from a textbook. So the individual that's educating these students, they don't know about this texture themselves.
Got it.
They don't know about texture themselves. So they're just opening a book to the texture section, whatever that is. And it's usually about 2 pages. And that's all they get. But then there's also some beauty schools, like right here in New York, and I know of personally, that refuse to teach texture.
Oh, what? Really?
Yeah.
Well,
They're
even though it's a
refusing,
law,
even though it's a law, they're refusing to teach texture
and
because their
it's
staff isn't qualified to teach texture. They feel
right,
it's too hard.
and they don't want to hire somebody who is qualified. Yeah.
That part, or they don't
Right.
want to send their staff to get trained.
Right. Yeah. There's a
Yeah,
cost constraint. There's a cost
yeah,
element there. Yeah.
yeah. So now these students are, definitely getting shortchanged. And hopefully they'll get an instructor that is, versed in dealing with texture. But
Right.
9 times out of 10, it's not that's not the case.
Right. Well, hopefully that changes as time goes by. Fingers crossed on that. But in the meantime,
Yeah.
there's Dominique LyVar out there with your Azuri. You've got the Curl Crew as well. Is that kind of under the same Azuri umbrella?
So no, so the Curl Crew started from a night out drinks with my friends. We
There you
all,
go.
taught together. We're all, hairstylists in curls and in texture. And honestly, we just wanted to do what we do and do it together. And that's really how it started. We did an event. Our first event, I think, was last year. We did a pop up down in Miami. That was really cool. And we did a class at the Natural Hair Convention, which was in Baltimore last year. We taught there. We did an event in Detroit. So yeah, and it's really just a good time. Like anything that I do now, I want it to be a good time, whether it's work or whether it's not. So if I'm working, I want to enjoy it. Not saying I don't like hard work. Even if it is hard work, I still want to enjoy it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It goes back to having the depth of experience and the skills and everything. And you have things to choose from now. You could do A,
Yeah.
B, C, or D. So, of course, you're going to want to do the things you enjoy.
Yeah. And the
Okay.
different
So,
schools that I taught at really gave me more tools. Like every school that I taught at, when I was with Aveda, I got tools from there. When I was with Paul Mitchell, I got tools from there. So all of this is just adding, and outside of the stylist type of tools and education, I also got education on how to be an effective educator,
of course,
so yeah.
very interesting. So, I like this question, and I don't always ask this question, but I think you'll have a good answer to this question. What is the most difficult conversation you've ever had with a client in the chair?
Ooh. Honestly, for me, the most difficult conversations that I've had with a client is usually one type of conversation. And it's usually the type of conversation to where the client is faced with actually seeing themselves for who and what they really are.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah.
Such as.
Such as my mother always told me my hair was bad, so I did everything. I had a boyfriend. He didn't like my curly hair, so I straightened it. I had a job. They said I couldn't wear my hair out. So a lot of who they are naturally is what they were trying to change or to camouflage or hide or even assimilate. So it's like they get tired. The thing is, they're getting tired of putting up this facade and they muster up the strength to actually go natural. And for a lot of people, that's big, because, they're used to their hair, seeing their hair probably long and straight. And then now it's going to be short and curly, total opposites,
Yeah.
And they don't know how to deal with that, so it's really just assuring them, one, it's a process, it's a process. It's definitely a journey. And for me, it comes to turning that conversation around to show them that them embracing their true selves and doing their hair and working on the health of their hair is more in self-care than anything. And I'm finding, especially with my clientele, especially based here in this crazy ass city of New York, they miss out on self-care, whether it's because of the job, their family. So a lot of, what goes on here, sometimes it's really emotional for these clients, and as a stylist, you just got to be, one, you have to be sensitive, and you have to know how to read the room. You can't be insensitive. And if you say you want to be a curl specialist and all of that, there needs to be some type of sensitivity behind it. You need to do some research. You need to know the history behind natural hair, because all of that is layered with that one client that you want to do a curly cut on. They could have gone through years and years, of hair abuse and trauma, and you just want to do this new technique you learned.
Right.
And they're looking, they're sometimes they don't even know what they're looking for.
Right.
For a lot of them, it's more of a feeling, that they feel seen, they feel heard, and they don't feel judged from their hair. I've been in salons where I've heard stylists, talk down to a client and make them feel bad about their hair because of their lack of education and skill, so
Right.
those conversations are always the hardest, because no matter what I do, it could be perfect. If they don't like what they see or what they feel about themselves, that it doesn't matter.
Right.
It doesn't matter. So for me, those are the hardest conversations, is really getting the client to be comfortable with themselves. And that's hard. Majority of my clientele are women. I don't know how to feel comfortable as a woman. So, for me, it's just a matter of, trying to relate with them from, experience that I've had, like with my family and with my sisters and things like that,
Yeah.
they're not alone. This goes on. This is more common than a lot of people think.
Yeah. I knew you were going to have a good answer to that question. If you could wave a wand and change anything about the industry at all right now, what would it be?
Let's see. Where do I start? Honestly, I would say the fake and the superficialness, if that's a word.
Superficiality, I think.
Yes, that. I would let's change that. I find when I go to a lot of industry events, I tend to sit back because there's a lot of characters, and those characters are in their rare form, and that's not me. Whether it's a character that's, they show on their social media and that's what people are expecting to see. I just want people to just be real. Honestly, there's a lot of fakeness in our industry, and I get it. We're in the beauty industry. It's all about aesthetics and things like that. But I mean, to the core of a person, just be real. Be real and honest. That's what I would think. And then the next one would be more diversity and inclusion across the board, and not just, these major companies, they say they're diverse, but they basically just check the box, and that makes them diverse, really showing diversity and really not just having, a figurehead to show how diverse you are.
Right. Right. Well, I think many listeners can agree with you on both of those. I doubt you're the only one who doesn't like the fakeness.
I hope so, because when I go to these events, like I sit in the back,
Yeah.
and usually the people that aren't fake, we usually kind of somehow all kind
Right.
of get
Sure.
together. You attract your own,
Right. Yeah.
and for me, especially with my age and where I've been and how long I've been in the industry, I just sit and look like, is all of this necessary? Because for the most part, I got into doing hair because I like doing hair. I like playing in my sister's
Yeah.
hair.
Yeah.
That's really where it came from. So a lot of the extraness,
Yeah.
I get it. Everybody wants a show, and that's good,
Yeah.
but there needs to be some balance and some realness in that.
Oh, there's a whole lot of people with your perspective, and I see them at the hair shows, and I know a decent number of people there, through my 25 years in this industry, especially in a Southern California show, there's room for everybody in there, but
Yeah.
yes, there's 100% those who like to display
Yes,
their
that's a
big
good.
personalities.
That is it. That is it. Like they're always on stage, and
Yes.
with me, like when I have to be on stage, I have to be on stage, and I know what all of that entails. I get it, but when I'm not on stage, I'm not on stage.
Yeah.
And even when I'm on stage, I'm still the same. Like
Yeah.
the way I educate is basically how I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I try to make who I am in real life the same, whether it's shown through my social media or whether I'm up teaching a class or I'm on a stage. Because you heard you don't want to meet your heroes or because they can be an asshole.
Right.
So I don't want anyone to say when they met me that they said I was an asshole.
I don't think you have nothing to worry about there. No, I think you're safe.
I mean, I try not. I say I really keep quiet a lot because, some asshole could come out of these lips a few times.
Yeah,
and I don't want that to happen.
Yeah, that's funny.
That's why I set those boundaries.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, give us a hair horror story. Give us your best hair horror story.
Hair horror story.
Now, this could be coming from you, or this could be something you witnessed somebody else do in the salon.
Oh, I saw a perm once go horribly wrong, just horribly wrong. And so it was like under processed and over processed all at the same time.
Oh gosh.
So they try to, take the rods out. They try to relax it with permanent wave solution to get it straight again, to re-rod it, to do this thing all over again.
Can you do that?
No. No.
Even I know that you can't do that.
Absolutely not. And I'm like, wow. And yeah, halfway through the processing the second time, you just started seeing rods just come off right at the scalp.
Rods and hair.
Yeah, the whole rod, no hair, just yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was horrible. The client, of course, just cried.
Oh.
Like the stylist cried. It was just horrible. It was just so bad. A horror story that I did actually was when I started teaching beauty school. A client came in. She wanted highlights. I wasn't good at highlights then. Remember, I went back teaching prematurely,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, let's do this. And when I said the highlights were horrible, I mean, when I say horrible, it was just spots and just, I don't even think it could even be fixed. Like that's how bad it was. But at the end, the client loved it.
No.
She absolutely loved it. And I'm praying oh God, I have to try to fix this. And, of course, now I'm teaching because now there's a student watching me.
Yeah.
So the client loved it. And right after then, I actually stopped working at the salon that I had my own chair at and went and worked at a salon where they were departmentalized
Okay.
and worked in the color department to learn more about color. So totally demoted myself, went and assisted just to learn color because
Wow.
I didn't want to be scared again and fearful,
Yeah.
especially as an educator.
Right. Well, that says a lot about your personality. You like to, if you realize you have a weakness, you're going to fix it. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's fantastic. Any
Yeah.
last words for the community?
Last words for the community? Nothing. Just keep an eye out for me. I have a few things coming up. I have a class that's coming that's going to be here in New York and Staten Island, January 20th, which
Okay.
is very good. So that class is Stop Complicating Texture. So that's really just a simplistic way of handling texture because there's a lot of fear behind texture.
Hmm.
And I don't think people should be scared of it. I really
Hmm.
don't, you know. Um, I'm with, of course, like you said earlier, Texture versus Race. We have our summit coming up in,
Hmm.
I believe it's April.
Okay.
I'm also doing sorry, not a podcast. I'm doing a retreat at the end of October. So that's going to
Very
be
cool.
in Arizona. That's going to be out in
Oh,
Arizona. And all this information will be up on my social and all of that.
and your
So
social is Kingdom of Curls _
yes, Kingdom of Curls _. I also have a website, which is DominiqueLyVar.com. Yes, DominiqueLyVar.com. I have all of my education information on there and also for salon appointments and things like that.
Dominique, this was so much fun. It was great
Yes,
talking
it
to you.
was. It was absolutely fun.